Sexual energy is life force energy, so that's an important thing to understand. It's not something that you only activate in your sexuality, in your intimacy with someone else or with yourself. Like, it's literally life force and life moving through you. You can actually activate or go to a full body activation, and you can start moving and expanding the energy in your entire system. And so the breath is, wow, yeah, such a powerful tool. It's about aliveness. In the sexual energy, it comes down to aliveness, and that can be a 100% thing within yourself while you're fully clothed and just walking on the street, and those are amazing. Then it translates into radiance and magnetism, and people will be like feeling, wow, this person has a powerful, aura somehow. Normal people don't use that word, of course, but it's like you feel the charisma of a person. Yeah. So that's a beautiful exploration, is to just say, okay, we're going to prioritize pleasure, and what does that look like, and what could that be, moment after moment after moment, without needing to get anywhere specific. So you take away the pressure to have an orgasm, you take away the pressure to have penetration. When you take away, even have that agreement, like let's explore our bodies without going there.
My guest today is Leen, whose work centers around intimacy, pleasure, and sexual energy. Now, some of you may be thinking, what's that got to do with conscious awakening and expansion? Actually, quite a lot. And we're here to explore that with Leen today. Leen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. So it's been a long time coming, so it's happening. I'm happy. Yeah.
It has. Leen, what is your mission, and how did you arrive on this path?
Yeah, well, my mission is to help people. I call it live an orgasmic life. And that means that people, when we go on a journey together, however that happens, can happen in different ways. People become more connected to their bodies, to their joy, to their pleasure. Yeah, and therefore to a deeper also meaning of connection with themselves and with life. So I think that people, and I notice that people, myself included, we live from the mind a lot, and we live from our conditioning and a certain way of being in our society that is related to things from the past and our families. And yeah, we're all looking for a way to have a joyful and meaningful life, right? And yeah, I have in my own experience and in my professional experience seen how people can just open up to more magic within themselves by going within. So yeah, we look for a lot of ways to feel good in the outside world, and I strongly believe that it starts with going within and opening certain pathways within ourselves. And those are pleasure pathways. That's why the portal of sexuality is incredibly powerful, but it goes beyond sexuality. So it goes beyond having an orgasm or having a beautiful experience. Of course, that in itself is super valuable because it gives people glimpses of what they really are, what we really are. And then, of course, it goes beyond that. And myself, I explored this, or I discovered this 10 years ago. Meanwhile, it's been 10 years, 11 years. And just traveling and ending up in a tantric yoga school without consciously deciding that somehow. And yeah, I felt a real homecoming somehow of my heart and my soul through yoga, traditional tantric yoga and the tantric system. Both the more traditional teachings and the more contemporary teachings and variations of yoga and tantra. And for me, that was such a revelation. Like, I felt like, wow, this is what I've been looking for. I was 30-ish something at that time, and before that, and I see this with a lot of people I work with. Yeah, we live life, as I said, in a way that is expected from us. We do our job, we go to school, etc., etc. And I was so happy to explore actually also the more spiritual side of life that I think we all are. We all are that. And then through an official system like yoga or tantra, you can have a framework of exploring that in a more formal way. And for me, that was a real homecoming. And I was like, oh, wow, yes. I've been waiting for this, And then I started teaching yoga and people started asking me stuff about that. And then the sexual piece came, a little bit after that, because it's all related. through the yogic, the traditional yoga and traditional tantra has a big focus on Shakti, on energy, and the acknowledgement of not only the physical bodies, but they speak about the fact that we have several koshas, several bodies, beyond just what we can see with our physical eyes. And so, yeah, the development of energy and the opening up of our energy system is a very, very big part of that. And once I started exploring that for myself, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And you can have these beautiful experiences while being sober, right? Because most people go to alcohol or yeah, we have in our societies ways that we, get out of the rat race and we deal with stress. And for me, that was such a clear tools, very practical, clear tools on the first, the first step of just feeling connected to myself, feeling good, having these beautiful experiences, and then going deeper and deeper and deeper into that, and then feeling changed, noticing a change in my self-confidence, in my empowerment, in my sense of self, in like, oh, I can actually, I felt capable of creating my dream life somehow. That happened. And I help people do the same now. So when going back to, the beginning of my answers, like orgasmic living is like, yeah, also it comes with a question like, okay, what do you really want in this life? If you imagine a state of orgasm, it's a state of expansion and happiness and joy and pleasure. It's like, okay, how can you bring this in your day-to-day life? And what would that look like? What would it look like if you ask yourself, okay, what is really important to me? And if I don't have, my limited ego to bring me down and to tell you, this is not possible. How are you going to create this? If you drop that for a moment and you let yourself really, this would be an amazing life at the end of my lifetime. If I've done this, wow, beautiful, then I will be very fulfilled and happy and content. That's a question that I ask my clients. And then what we do is we go within and we activate the sexual energy and the empowerment from within. And then we let life kind of take us on the road towards those desires. And the road is as important as the destination, because that's one of the things. It's like, even when you get to certain desires that, maybe five years ago you think you wanted, and then when you get them there somehow, well, you can have realizations about, oh, actually there's things that are even deeper than that. So what I thought was important through my ego, but also the soul, it's like always a combination, desires, they can come from different parts inside of ourselves. And it's totally fine also to listen to these more ego desires, if you will, from the mind or from our conditioning. It's totally fine. And then we have to discover, oh, actually, having so much money, it doesn't really make me happy, or it does in a certain way, but not in other ways. And that's I think the path that we all have to go through on this life. And I help people with that. Yeah.
Beautiful. And is the sort of biggest misunderstanding that a lot of people have when it comes to sexual energy?
Well, I think people just underestimate the power of it, really. And I'd say this and I laugh, and then I feel like a shower of energy moving through. So that's what happens. So that's how accessible our energy and our bliss can become when we do the practices. Yeah, people underestimate it. And there's different things, yes. There's the element of people leaking their energy. Well, sexual energy is life force energy. So that's an important thing to understand. It's not something that you only activate in your sexuality, in your intimacy with someone else or with yourself. Like, it's literally life force and life moving through you. So that's an important thing to understand. It's way broader than that. It's like literally the fuel that you can have, to have in your day-to-day life. And so also to create the life of your dreams, right? So people, when they come to me with problems like low libido, which is the case, I work with women, with men, with couples. So there's different types of issues that people come to me with. And, low libido and low sexual energy and being tired in general, that's related to, okay, how are you leaking your energy? How are you leaking also your sexual energy? It can be energy in general, or can be more specifically related to sexual energy. And so those are important questions. Like, okay, how am I sabotaging my own aliveness, my own vitality? So sexuality, vitality, aliveness, yes, life moving through, same. It's related. And so that's the big question of, okay, how are you doing things in your day-to-day life that are not making you really happy? We can look at all the areas of a person's life to see and to acknowledge, like, okay, this is really draining my life force energy. And so the sexuality piece actually is a reflection of other things that are going on in a person's life or in a couple's life, right? When the libido is mismatching and there's not a lot of attraction or desire and stuff like that, it's always underlaying emotions, emotional pieces, connection pieces between in a couple, for example, or just for single people between them and themselves. Yeah. So understanding that the sexual energy is life moving through you, and that when you go and you work with that, you can actually allow more of life to flow through you, become more self-confident, have more energy, have more vitality, have more aliveness in general. That's very important. And then there's also the acknowledgement of how does unrefined sexuality in general, what does that look like? Because I think that's the case in our society, in our culture, our pop culture. Sexuality from a tantric perspective, we say it's on the second chakra. It's like at the level of Svadhisthana chakra, and it's kind of stuck there. So that's our sexual center, yes? And we have an entire body. So we have all of these energy centers, and my teachings a lot are about refining sexual energy and having, an orgasmic life means also literally moving the energy up, letting it move up and becoming more full-bodied. So different qualities of a person can come online also. You become a more whole person when you literally work on the energy moving through your own system, and then that reflects in the outside world. You change, actually. That's a transformation that happens. And in that process of opening up, you deal with your trauma, you deal with your blockages and everything that's stuck from your entire life, from your past, that is stuck in the body. It's reflected here. Yes. And so the acknowledgement of how in a couple, or if you're single, how are you behaving sexually with another person? And what I see that is happening, and that those are pieces also between men and women, yes, that are still echoes from patriarchy that we're healing from, that we're moving out of, is like, okay, when are there elements of entitlement between a man and a woman? Thinking, or these are subconscious pieces, because nobody will admit that, because it's like what we call the shadow pieces. Yes, it's like things that we are, and the behavior that we have, and the thoughts that we have that we're not too proud of. Like there's some judgment about that. There's actually some shame, or sometimes we don't even know that we do it. Oftentimes that's the case. Like, is there entitlement of like, oh, she should offer me sex, or he should offer me sex? Yeah, there's an element of extraction, like using someone else to satisfy your own sexual desire and needs. Happens all the time. Yes, sexual manipulation, using and having sex, and using sex to feel good about yourself and receiving validation and love. So confusing sex and love, yes, or separating them also. That's what happens all the time. And so those are misunderstandings. These are things that people don't realize about their sexuality, about their sexual energy. And so, it's about looking at, on the one hand, letting it take up more space, but also refining it and really letting it, move through love. Yeah, we want to go beyond using another person for your sexual gratification, right? And even in couples that are together for a long time, these kind of other undercurrents and issues can be there. There can be frustration, there can be entitlement, there can be neediness, right? And there can be resentment, there can be resentment, built up the resentment, like, oh, he only touches me when he wants sex. It's a classic. That's what I hear from women sometimes. So I work with all of these nuances and all of these layers, related to sexuality. Yeah.
And it sounds like, and like everything, it all starts within you, self-love. And I really kind of like I feel like sexual energy, when I stop and sort of connect to that frequency, that energy, it does feel different to, say, when I'm sort of in a state of meditation, connecting to my higher self. Of course, it's all part of the same life force.
Yes.
But I do feel a different frequency when I guess embody or think about sexual energy. And so there is a different feeling that comes with that. Is that what Kundalini energy is? And it's more than just sex, it's also that creative spark, right, within us. Can you explain how Kundalini energy and Kundalini awakening as well?
Yeah, well, I would say from the yogic perspective, it's on the one hand, so Kundalini energy is located at the base of the spine for men, and for women, it's actually in the cervix. Yeah, not a lot of teachers address it in this way, but that's a very important thing to play with and to activate as a woman. Your cervix, yeah, which is the entrance of the uterus. It's a totally underestimated, well, part of the sexual anatomy, but also the energetic anatomy of a woman. And in the tradition, it is said that Kundalini is a coiled up snake. Yes, it's a life force, the most potent life force energies. Depending on the tradition, the Taoist tradition, they speak about different types of chi, depending on what part of the body you go to. So the lower belly, first dantian, the heart, and then the upper chakra, or dantian, they call it. So there's, depending on the tradition, yeah, there's different explanations and different words that are used for similar things. And so Kundalini is this coiled up snake energy that is in the root of our system somehow, and through the practices of purification, and that can be different practices. Yes, that can be through meditation. The tradition says, to meditate is enough. The Yoga Sutras, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, they focus on that, and they say, yeah, this is just hours of meditation with some asanas, but it's a lot of meditation in the old ways. And then of course in our centuries, yeah, there's been more movement, and there's different type of practices, like breath-related practices that are super potent, that also, of course, relate to the pranayama tradition from yoga, with the breathwork tradition from, let's say, the 60s, 70s that were created are also related to all of that, and activate this energy within ourselves. And so it's like the Kundalini awakening and activation. There's different stages to that, because there's the shaking, there's different types of energy. And so it's the idea that we are all meant to awaken at a certain moment. And from that tradition, we're not only having this life, but we're having several lives, and we are getting, reincarnated, as long as we don't realize our full spiritual, nature, our essence of unconditional love and pure consciousness, etc. So the energy in that process of awakening, the Kundalini energy moves up through our bodies, and through the purification, as I said before, yes, it's related. We open and we activate that flow of energy. And then there's at a certain moment there's a realization of our oneness with the entire universe that happens. Those are states of samadhi, as they're called, in the tantric and the yogic tradition. The energy moves all the way up through Sahasrara, and then actually it ends back down in the spiritual heart. So it comes back down all the way at the end, let's say, somehow in the spiritual heart, which is not the same as the energetic heart. It's something a bit. Now I'm speaking more technical things, of course. It's beautiful to speak about for certain people who are intrigued by these things. But so that's the Kundalini awakening. Yeah, it's the moving upwards of this energy. And so a person, we all have to, let's say, dance with how this energy is blocked within ourselves, and that relates to our trauma, that relates to everything that we inherited from our parents, that relates to the things we experienced in this life. But also then in the tradition, it's like it's karma and samskaras from previous lives too. Yes. So that is also part of that, of the yogic system. They don't say it's only related to this life. Yeah. And I don't focus necessarily on the Kundalini awakening per se, because it's like, I find it sometimes a bit too goal oriented somehow. I think there can be, or it's goal oriented, that I deeply believe in and open myself, and allow and invite other people just to open to the perfection of whatever is here now. Yes. So there's nowhere to get to. Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's really obvious when you meet you, Leen, and when you're around in your presence, you feel you're very, very present and very connected to your body, and very, you have a sexual energy, quote unquote, when you're in your presence, or an aura, or a charisma that emanates from you. And I think in an era where we're spending, I guess, well, there is a return now to embodiment, because there is an awakening where we understand that it's so important to be embodied, to spend time with the body, to do these rituals, to do these practices, to practice presence, to connect with that chi, to connect with that sexual energy.
Yes.
because for so long we have been taught to be running around mental and using our mental energy. So I really resonate with the connection of this from a being present, being embodied, from a personal healing, in order for you to be the best, I guess, version to go into a relationship
Also, yeah.
with. So when we were at the New Earth Frequency Activation, you led a wonderful guided meditation called Pleasure Activation for a New Earth. And a lot of the people, they describe that as almost like orgasmic breath work.
Yes.
So what happened on that journey, and what is the role of breath in the work that you do?
Yeah. Yeah, it was such a beautiful, beautiful session. I just love that this is my job. You know, at the end, I see all the humans in a state of relaxation and bliss and with big smiles on their faces. And sometimes also not, yeah, because sometimes people meet themselves and are confronted with certain parts in themselves that are, yeah, blocking them from allowing pleasure and allowing relaxation. Yes. So, yeah, that's a very powerful ritual. Yes. It's manifestation, and it's using your sexual energy and your pleasure actually to charge the manifestation. Yeah. And so during that process, you use the breath. And of course, we did it in a setting where we're all together, etc. So we are using breath rather than a more explicit activation of our sexuality, where there could be self-touch. People can do the same ritual on their own and with a partner, where it becomes, yeah, it can become more explicit. Yes, you can really use self-touch, and you can, yeah, build up that sexual energy. Very beautiful to do together also with your beloved. And so what happens is that you charge them. So we did it, of course, with that vision of a new earth. Yes. And all of us, we imagined and visualized in a five senses reality what that new earth will and could look like and feel like and taste like and smell like. And by activating not just the visualization, by activating the five senses, we activate also different parts of our brains. We also already start relating to the different planes of the different chakras, because the different chakras, they relate to the different senses that we have: earth, taste, smell, etc., etc. So there's this kind of full body, full being, and the micro is a macro, right? So all of us, that's the yogic principle, and the big traditions, they all say that we have the universe inside of ourselves. So by working inside of ourselves, we connect also to kind of a cosmic reality somehow. And so when you activate and you use the breath then to start circulating and bringing the sexual energy and the pleasure up through all of the different chakra bands, yes, and at the end of our ritual, we bring it all the way up to Sahasrara chakra, and this is the connection to the absolute, to the cosmos, yes? We actually manifest with that energy. And yeah, the breath is just the tool, or one of the most important tools, you know, together with attention, using your mind to focus. But the breath is the one that amplifies, of course, you amplify any sensation that you have, you amplify it through the breath, and it allows for movement to happen, because you can breathe in collaboration, of course, with the attention of your mind, the focus of your mind, the movement of your body, and the sounding. Yeah, those four elements, right? We use those, and I use this all the time with my clients. You can actually activate or go to a full body activation, and you can start moving and expanding the energy in your entire system. And so the breath is, wow, yeah, such a powerful tool. There's anything that anyone can take away from this conversation is, you know, breathing with self-awareness and being aware of your breath. It's the most direct way to come in this connection with yourself. And you can do that for, of course, a couple of hours and go to an altered state of consciousness and a deep connection. So yeah, it's such a powerful practice. Yeah.
It was beautiful, and you know, a lot of people were, you know, wow, including me. So, on the topic of New Earth, you know, there's a lot of talk about New Earth, this shift, this procession timeline, this awakening of humanity, which in my world certainly seems to exist. At least I'm resonating with that timeline. What does the New Earth mean for you, or do you resonate, I guess, with this awakening of humanity, this energy, this new frequency.
Yeah, totally. Davey and I were good friends, and I remember before, it was all concrete or the things happened, we had a lot of conversations about this. And yeah, it's been of course my work in some sense, yeah, is to let people awaken to that version within themselves. And for me, it is really about an embodiment journey. It's about, okay, we do the shift within and then the outer world will also start responding. And of course, it's not about just sitting in meditation and going to caves, because that's what people, of course, used to do. And we need that still. We need those moments of isolation and hermit time and to work on our practices and to do our practices. But then, of course, it's also about making it happen and making it, manifested concretely, practically speaking. Yes. When I feel into that, because for me, it's more, it's really a feeling of, oh, our light bodies will become more and more light. Yes, we'll literally, it's like this ascending process of everything that I've explained also already today, is the refinement of our energy, is the removing and the releasing of our traumatic experiences, the releasing of karmic experiences also, and the coming home more and more in our hearts. So it's going from living from the mind and from the ego to more and more bringing our soul online and letting our soul inhabit our bodies, literally speaking, also symbolically speaking, because it's more subtle, of course, more and more and more. And so what does that feel like? What does it feel like here, right now? You can just invite more. I can do this as I'm saying these words, like I can connect to my heart and invite more soulfulness to come in this conversation, and I can feel already like there's slowness, there's stillness, there's spaciousness. And so I feel this I imagine this as a state of being where we're going to be less in that rat race, less chasing, less doing things, to compensate for our individual lack of worthiness, really, on a very existential level as human beings, really. And so there will be a deeper connection, and there's a deeper connection to our planet and to nature, of course, that is needed. And that also comes from our own embodiment, because our body is an extension of this planet, right? That's what happens when I think we can see that or analyze that a little bit of what happened in our world, of how we have been living as humanity. It's the kind of destruction of the earth and the planet, also for values that are that are based in greed, also in accumulation and all of these things. And that's because the ego wants more and is afraid, we want more, the ego wants more. We can feel that in our day-to-day lives also, myself included. It's like, when is there lack? When is there fear? How does it express? And when do we, on the other hand, go in trust and in love? And how does that change the way that we behave on a day-to-day level? So I always, like to bring these big concepts again to the here and the now, and to be like, okay, how can I be a better person, and how can I bring intention to my thoughts and my behavior and who I am, what am I emanating, at any moment on this planet. I think we are very lucky, our community and people watching this, and it's how I feel. And as I say this, I have a lot of love coming through and a lot of energy coming through of like, wow, we are lucky to meet each other and to recognize each other being on this path together, because of course we are in a little echo chamber, and for us it's normal. Yeah, it's like we're looking at the world in this way. And it's important to understand that we get to be these lighthouses. Yes, we get to be, all of us, we get to be lighthouses for our families that might, not know about these things so much, and that's the invitation, I think, of the new earth, is the new human. And how can we be that first and foremost already right here, right now, in our own lives? And then it's really about, okay, what is the frequency that we are emitting? And that becomes our more important contribution, as opposed to, oh, how many things of my to-do list have I, accomplished today? Like, that level of, oh, what am I embodying, and what is my frequency? And yeah, it's a bit of a vague answer. I went into different
No,
directions, but
and I think more than ever, authenticity. People now are realizing there is no one as unique as you. We're all unique in our own way, and to really connect to your true self and live authentically, express yourself authentically, and that means yeah, we're going to make mistakes, we're going to say things that embarrass ourselves, but we're going to do things that are a bit scary. But the world needs you to be you. And whenever I get a little bit scared about my future, I think I'm expressing who I am and my true beliefs and my true passions. And there is a trust for me, almost like a universe protection that comes with, I think, no, I'm meant to show up and be me. More than ever. Now, I'm in a bit of a spiritual bubble. I talk a lot to people in, who like to embody and talk about expanding consciousness. So I'm aware that there are many people out there who are not even tuned into this kind of information, and that's fine. Everybody's on their own journey. And yet, when I think about my upbringing and I guess what I was taught unconsciously about sex and connecting to my own sexuality, there was, I guess a shame, and I suppose it begins in teenage years where, you're awakening in your teenage years, but you're sort of told not to be that sexual when you're a teenager because you would be considered one of those, for women, one of those girls, who, I won't say those labels. And so you sort of, I guess, repress or hide that sexuality. And then, of course, you become an adult. But again, you're still young. So I guess the question I wanted to ask you was, I guess I'm recognizing where I grew up with quote unquote shame. And I say that because I know shame's a big topic. Where do you see shame beginning? And with the people that come to you, is that something you spend a bit of time kind of helping them to release?
of course, yeah. And as I was saying, during our pleasure manifestation, it's like some people went there. Some people went to that edge of like, okay, what does it mean to breathe in my sexuality? Even there's no self-touch, but shame, we are born with it, yeah, because it's also something that we literally receive through the DNA almost, we can say, and through conditioning of our parents and our grandparents, etc. So it's like when I tap into my own mother line, for example, and I imagine, I feel into my grandmother, and I feel into the relationship and the sexual relationship she had with my grandfather. Wow, there was a lot of suppression. There was a lot of women not having any agency. There was a lot of, patriarchy, basically, in a way, a woman expected to just offer her body to her husband, right? So all of these things are still passed passed through the lines, obviously. So, and depending on whether we are born as a man or a woman, we have different type of conditioning also that comes, of course, from our gender lines and all of that, right? So yeah, of course, that's on the more subconscious level. I think as babies, and you observe babies, I know you have children, or one girl, yes, and you can see how a baby has this very innocent sexuality and an innocent being of being in their bodies, because I'm just in a body. What is shameful about is that the idea that there's anything shameful about a human body, that already is so heartbreaking, right? And yet that is what is happening. There's this shaming of pleasures, shaming of being a sexual being, even though it's how we exist.
Yeah.
Like, so wow, it's so it hurts the heart, right? And it doesn't make any sense even on a mental level. It's like, wow, how is that possible? Like that suppression, right, that happens. So yeah, it can happen at very young ages. And there's one of the very empowering rituals that I do also is like restoring sexuality in the different flavors and stages of sexuality. So even restoring, and that can be very beautiful. So for some people, restoring their innocent sexuality, which is really this baby and a very young age phase, then a playful sexuality, which is also something that we explore and children explore from the age of 4 to whatever, 10, 11. Yes. And then we become into this exploration of puberty and how can we restore and bring safety and wholeness to that experience. And then at a later age, we become adults. And so how can we really celebrate, being adults and more mature in our sexuality? What does that look like? And how can we explore pleasure without any shame? And in a later stage of life, there's more sacredness of sexuality that can come, right? So there's these beautiful flavors and wholeness and sacredness at any stage and purity of any stage that we get to explore. And so yes, of course I work with shame. That's one of the things that I feel when I meet a person. I can feel that also. I can feel the parts inside of a person that are repressed and suppressed, related to sexuality, but also related to, because there's a lot of times that controlling mechanism, there's perfectionism, and it relates to sexuality immediately. I can feel that in a lot of women also, right? There's a lot of controlling and perfectionism that then says something about how a woman also explores and experiences her own orgasms and her own sexuality, and being able to surrender and to let go of control, being able to let yourself be seen in not caring actually what you look like, right? There's a lot of layers and steps that I invite people, or I take people on in a journey of like, letting go and feeling that piece of safety. So safety is a very, very important element. How is it safe to land in your sexuality? How is it safe to be sexy? How is it safe to explore your innocent sexuality or playful sexuality for a man? Because for men, there's performance pressure. Yes, a man needs to always have an erection or look a certain way, and there's of course the impact of pornography and all of that. It's all part of it. Yes. And so I unpack all of these things with people. Yeah.
Because I even noticed with myself, if I'm in a very dark nightclub, which I used to go to a lot back in the day, I got no issues dancing and expressing my full sexuality there, because nobody can really see me, especially if it's crowded. But there is something that, I still hold back. Oh, I don't want to look too sexy. I want to move my hips in a certain way. I don't want to wear this and look too sexy. What would be, and by the way, I know a lot of women are like this, because I've done exercises with other women, and I'm just, I guess, and men actually, where we were really encouraged, like, let yourself go, move your body. And it was actually came back to just connect with your body and move it how your body wants to move it, without thinking about what anyone else is thinking or looking at. And it was very liberating to do. And it was, and of course, in the beginning, you're a little nervous, you're apprehensive, you don't want to go there. And then, of course, you realize everybody's in there kind of closing their eyes and doing that. Felt like a safe environment to go there. I guess for that, somebody who, I guess I feel like I'm very self-aware, but then I notice that's still in me, that, holding back of my sexuality. Is there a practice that you would recommend for someone like me and other women or men like me who may know that they're holding back something that?
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think people will really resonate with your story. And how I work with this, feeling that safety of being seen as sexy, because there's different layers to that and different situations. There's the element of, being seen as sexy in the outside world, yes? And that can be on the street, that can be by your family, that can be by coworkers, that can be in all of these different contexts, of course. And so the question is, what is the expansion that you want to experiment with? And in that, your example is, I'm going to a certain maybe dance event. And depending on also the let's say, level of consciousness of people at the dance event, are they closing their eyes? Is this a nightclub situation where people are drinking alcohol and are, under the influence? It's like, that's a different situation. And your body will scan for what is unsafe, what feels unsafe. And all of us have our own, and of course, women, we have history of and centuries of abuse. So we have that in our systems, and men don't realize that because it's not necessarily in our lifetimes, even though a lot of women have literally, we scan for unsafety, and we need to scan for unsafety all the time, right? Men don't realize this, but this is part of the female experience. Even now, walking on the street, am I safe? A man is looking at me in a certain way. Oh, this feels, etc., etc. So all of this expresses in that kind of situations where you're trying to let go and trying to explore that. It's all of these layers and these unconscious and the things from the past are there. So for me, how I teach this, it's like you learn to expand your level of sexiness one level up. So if you have 0 to 10 and 10 is fully, I'm all out. And maybe now, well, no, it depends. Because when I'm taking the bus, I can play with that and I can feel that as inner radiance, because it doesn't even mean that you behave or you look a certain way. That's a very important thing to understand. And that's the empowerment. It's about aliveness, sexiness, sexual energy. It comes down to aliveness. And that can be a 100% thing within yourself while you're fully clothed and just walking on the street. And those are amazing. Then it translates into radiance and magnetism. And people will be like feeling, wow, this person has a powerful, aura somehow. Normal people don't use that word, of course, but it's like you feel the charisma of a person. Yeah. So that's what it translates like in a very non-sexual way when you even are connected to your inner sexiness and your inner radiance, basically. Yes. That means that you have in your inner realm, you have an openness and a safety and an acknowledgement of that aliveness within yourself without needing to externalize it. So there's all of these layers, there's all of these levels we can play with. But so in your situation, in your context, it's about just go one level up. If you are dancing and you feel, I'm at the level 6 of my sexiness, right? Then what does it feel like when I bring that to level 7? Yeah. And can I still feel safe, calm, loving at this new level? And then you explore that and you let that anchor in your nervous system. And you can also use your mind, of course, to anchor that. Yeah, you can say, it's safe. I'm safe. Yeah, this is beautiful. You can have this positive self-talk. So that's a beautiful practice. And people can also do this with their beloved. So when you're single and dating or so, how can I bring one level up or 10% more, if you will, more. And this is how we expand that while feeling safe. So it's always a combination. One level up while feeling safe. When the safety is not there, you go a level down. Because if not, you're overriding your own boundaries. And people do that sometimes, yes? Or we are performing sexiness to get that validation, right? Again, this is where more trauma is created in a way. Yeah.
And you work a lot with couples, and particularly couples that have lost the intimacy, and perhaps they've labeled themselves as having a low libido, perhaps they haven't. I read a recent blog that you'd written, and it was around just doing little things like lighting candles, smelling nice, or wearing something that you feel good in. What can we do when we feel like we're in this beautiful relationship, but perhaps it's become super domesticated, which is really unsexy?
Yes.
What can we do to change things?
Yeah, I think it's really about micro moments. So, because people can feel maybe intimidated by the word tantra even, or what does it mean to become more tantric in a relationship, right? So it's like, it's not about the Kama Sutra. It's not about, it can be if you want to, but it's let's bring it down to like very simple ways that there's micro moments of connection and pleasure that can be created with your partner. And it's really a decision. So you need to decide, okay, this is important, really. And so I'm taking responsibility for my side of the street, if you will. And in system change, there's a systematic approach to, there's analysis of these things, and research is like one thing of the system can change and that has an impact on the entire system. So meaning when one person in the relationship starts doing the work and decides, let's see if I can bring more sex in my relationship, and eroticism, eros, I want to invite that, then that will have an impact on your person, on your man or on your woman. So that's all it takes in a way. And so there's different ways to, of course, do that. You can create more explicit date nights. I mean, I tell people, I give all of my clients the job, let's say, in the task to create at least weekly moments of connection where, oh, we have an hour or two. um, hopefully, that's possible, where you find a babysit, etc. And you have the agreement, okay, we are going to explore eros and we're going to physically connect. And what is important in that way or in that situation, is to not have an expectation to have penetrative sex. That's very important, because that can create pressure, and especially, depending on the history of a couple and the history of a sex life. Yeah, there might be a rush towards that, or there might be, it happens oftentimes, it happens a bit too fast. Yeah, for different reasons. So that's a beautiful exploration, is to just say, okay, we're going to prioritize pleasure. And what does that look like? And what could that be, moment after moment after moment, without needing to get anywhere specific. So you take away the pressure to have an orgasm, you take away the pressure to have penetration. When you take away, even have that agreement, like let's explore our bodies without going there. Very beautiful, because then you're actually using your mind and come up with new ways to approach each other, to approach eros together, and that can be super, super reviving and super, just joyful and playful. Yeah, it can be playful. It can be so. And then it's about, of course, a date is amazing, and having that fixed moment every week. And then you can anticipate, and your mind knows, oh, it's coming. And then you get, curious, and you get excited about it. That's so important. That's so valuable. And then it's also about these micro moments, as I said, like, oh, are you, and that's a more emotional connection also. Are you having deep conversations? Are you having moments in the day where you're not just talking about the management of the house or the family, but you're really, you're really present with each other. You're really asking, hey, how is your dating? And when your beloved is answering, when your husband or wife is answering, are you really there with him or her? A lot of people, the simple act of listening and the skill of really listening and letting someone speak, and not answering and making it about yourself, but really mirroring back what you've heard and really staying with their story. Wow, that opens a person's heart and sex. Yeah, that creates a deep connection. And then the attraction will start flowing, because the love will start flowing again.
And we're really good at doing that at the start of a relationship, the start of a new relationship.
Yes.
We're very good at listening and tuning in to every word the other person's saying. But no, I love that. And they're really practical tips. And, as you were saying that, I was, very much resonating with all of that. And so thank you. On the subject of orgasm, because you speak a lot on, I guess, amplifying orgasms in both men and women. Why, I guess, is that important, and what does that unlock for us?
Yeah, beautiful question. People in general find it way easier to stay stuck in negativity and so quote unquote negative emotions, yes. And these are conditioning. This is the subconscious mind, etc. And so my job is to help people resonate and expand their capacity for pleasure, for orgasm, pleasure, same. Why is that important? Well, because that's what we deserve, and we are worthy of that. I believe this is one of the reasons why we are in a body that has this capacity to have ecstatic states of pleasure. And so why not, right? Why would we not explore ourselves and our bodies in this way? And it's beyond the orgasm. The orgasm doesn't even matter, because again, it's like this thing of like, oh, did I get there? Did I have it? And then there's a danger there that you get stuck in chasing that somehow. And that's actually counterproductive. The more you want something and you want an orgasm, it's applied to other things in life too. If you're chasing something, then there's pressure that you create, right? And the nature of an orgasm is letting go of control, because the prefrontal cortex, the thinking mind, goes offline. Especially for women, your survival and your protection mechanisms go offline. And so it's a practicing of surrender. Yes, a practicing of letting go of control, which is very hard for us humans. So that practice of opening our orgasmic capacities is related, is also a metaphor for, the letting go of control. And that means that translates in your life also as letting you co-create your life with the universe, if you will, with something that is bigger than your ego. Yeah, so then you open also to the more magic of life, basically, because it's beautiful. Yes, it's a beautiful feeling, and knowing that you're co-creating and you're almost like a child of the universe, if you will. Yeah, I like that kind of thought somehow. And so when you broaden your orgasmic capacity, you also broaden your capacity for love. You also broaden your capacity to receive abundance. Yeah, you broaden your capacity for all of these beautiful, beautiful qualities, and that's that's what matters. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. And, you know, I'd never thought of it as an act of surrender, but you're right. In those moments, in those few seconds or however long it lasts, it is that sense of oneness, of absolute presence. If you're ever going to experience presence, true presence in that moment, in that explosion of, and really like almost that explosion towards that oneness of our creator. And I often think, wow, like how genius is the human body, and this whole universe is absolute genius.
Yeah.
And then I think, who created orgasms and how did that happen? Amazing, like an amazing creation.
Yes.
I always think so. I like to marvel at existence in general in
Yes.
that way.
And
Um,
can I just say something?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's like, I love to think of also of sensations as micro-orgasms.
Micro-orgasms, like when I sneeze?
Yeah. But any sensation, like open your
Yeah.
mind really as sensations becoming micro-orgasms.
Yeah.
And this is how you become so much more orgasmic. And so then you understand, oh, it's about way more than just having sex and what happens in a sexual context. That's orgasmic living. That's literally what I what I speak about in this way. And then it becomes something that is accessible for us at any moment. And it's our birthright. And understanding that and really letting that land rewires our worthiness. Again, is this deep existential worthiness of like, I deserve pleasure and love just for being alive. I don't need to chase it. I don't need to perform. I don't need to do all of these things that I think that I need to become or do in order to feel good and to feel loved. No. And that becomes more and more a state of being. That's very existential. That's very deep. That's very profound. Yeah.
And just to few more questions, if I've got a little bit more time with you, is what would your advice be to someone who, I guess, is going through rejection? Because rejection really affects the body. You feel it in the body. You feel it very deep. And of course, that can then affect our sense of sexuality as well and sexual energy. Is there something that you've learned through the years that you could share with us on how to deal with rejection?
Yeah. Beautiful question. I think we've all experienced that. Yes. And I think actually maybe that's not true, but I feel men even experience that even more in life, or they have to deal with rejection. Yeah. Even more often somehow. I mean, when we are rejected, that can really feel very painful. And oftentimes, it brings us back to a feeling of rejection from when we were younger. And that feeling of like, oh, I messed up or I'm not good enough, and I'm a failure. And so the intensity of the rejection and the feeling of rejection that we can feel as an adult says something to, okay, how much is this historical? How much does that bring us back to feeling that we've had earlier in life? And so the invitation and how I help people is like, okay, the acknowledgement of that pain and the feeling of, oh, and oftentimes that's inner child work actually, which I also I also guide people into, let's say, is this feeling of, okay, which part of me feels rejected and how young does that part feel? Because oftentimes it's a very, very young part. And the truth is that, and that's also important, is to understand on a more mental level as an adult and mature person, is like, okay, rejection, when people reject us, we take it personally, but oftentimes it's not that personal, you know. And there's also kind of wisdom of life moving through a person rejecting us. And oftentimes, of course, those are things that we only understand in hindsight. Like, okay, this was good that this rejection happened because then I did this and I met this person and wow, now we're married or whatever. You know, these things happen. And that's again, this kind of what you also mentioned of trust, of like, okay, when things are difficult and we are rejected by someone or some situation in life, okay, can we somehow trust? And can we also take a certain, it's like this mix of things, like, okay, it's about the other person rejecting us on the one hand, and also like, okay, what part of myself is kind of responsible or also creating this reality somehow? You know, what part of myself believes that I don't deserve better? And this is more the subconscious, the more subconscious pieces, and we all have them somehow. You know, people who are rejected over and over again, they believe subconsciously that that is what they deserve. You know, so that's the work we have to do. Then that's the inner work, really. That someone, and we all have to, get to it at a certain moment.
Yeah, get to that place of self-love. And if I think about times when I was feeling deep rejection, and I felt like I would feel it a lot more deeply than, you know, some of my friends would seem to feel it. And of course, I did link it back to childhood and feeling rejection and unworthiness, even though, of course, that wasn't any of the intention of my upbringing by my parents. I felt like, and I remember listening to Marianne Williams say with Return to Love, relationships are like a spiritual detox where they reveal, you know, something you need to heal within you. And that really was my aha moment to transform the pain of rejection. Other work starts with me. It's my self-love that I begin. Leen, what is the one message you would like to leave in the hearts of our listeners today that you feel passionate?
One message. Yeah, just I feel this is present with me this week. It's like unconditional love and practicing that. And how can we bring that in our daily realities? You know, to practice loving unconditionally. And that's our next level. Yeah. And that's, in this, I'm speaking to your heart, right? So it's from the heart to the heart, from my heart to your heart. It's like at the level of the heart, there is no judgment. Yeah, there is no rejection even, right? There's just this openness and this graciousness, and practicing bringing that, practicing just activating that wisdom, I would say. And then you can feel it. You can feel when you're living, speaking, talking, in interacting from that space, or whether you're more from and acting from a different place inside of you. And let's all just do our best. And I know that's important too. Like, I know we're all just doing your best, and you're doing your best, and that's amazing. Like, you're doing amazing. you know
I like to think you exist, and the fact that you exist means creation, all that is, source, needs you. So you are innately worthy, and connecting to that innate place of infinite self-worth is also a nice healing place to be.
Yeah, we just we're also here to play. Let's let's play and let's see this life as a
Yeah.
thing that we get to also not to take too seriously somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Really.
that's why I like to laugh a lot and just laugh without any reason, and just let's just bring that too, and bring that
Love
out
it.
in each other. Yeah.
Thank you, Leen. It's really beautiful. It's been wonderful to talk to you.
Mhm.
Leen, could you run us through some of the services, courses that you provide,
Yeah.
and I guess where people can find out more and connect
Yeah.
with you?
Yes. Well, Instagram, Lenis Coaching. I have a website. I have my own podcast also, Sex and Soul. I have a newsletter. Yeah. So if you go to my website, you can register for the newsletter. I share in my own style different things. Yeah, for the next levels and next steps. On the one hand, there's one-on-one coaching. So yeah, those are the deepest, most direct highways to transformation and expansion on all the levels. So that's for couples, but also for individuals. So if you feel called, reach out. Then there's online programs. So those are more group experiences, and they exist now for women. Majestic, beautiful program that I'm running now for women. Beyond that will probably open soon next year, actually, depending on when you're listening. So 2026. And then there's also an amazing program on Sub Lovers for couples. So that's really, I really created this one for, all the topics we spoke about. So to bring passion, attraction, but also depth in the emotional connection. Yeah, everything like tantric stuff. It's all there in Unstoppable Lovers. Yeah. And then before the conversation, we spoke about Egypt. So I just came back from Egypt from our first retreat, actually, that me and my co-teachers we ran. And so that will happen again next year in November again. Yes. So if Egypt is calling, yes, know that you're very welcome to join us. And that's for both men and women. You can join as a couple, you can join as a single person, or, everything. Yeah. Everyone is welcome there, basically. And that's about union. So that's really about this work of inner union between masculine and feminine, and then also the healing between men and women, and rising together. Yeah. So this is related to the new earth stuff. Yeah. Also. Yeah.
Wonderful, Leen. And we'll put the links in the description. Leen, thank you so much for talking to me today. Thank you very, very much for all your wisdom, for your energy, and just for opening our hearts and minds. And thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yeah. Thank you.